Kansas City Police Department has said that the shooting yesterday was a result of a dispute between that involved two juveniles. I'm just wondering, given the fact that Congress doesn't appear likely to act anytime soon, are there any tangible steps the administration can take to help keep guns out of the hands of teenagers, particularly given that these happen in kind of neighborhoods all over the country?
No, it's a good question. That's why we say we need to do more. That is exactly why we say we need to do more. We need Congress to do more. And I know your question about Congress. We have to put the pressure. We were able to pass a bipartisan piece of legislation that the president signed into law, obviously 2 years ago. So they took the first step. They need to take another step. There is executive action. There is obviously the Office of Anti-Gun Violence that we started here. It's a historic office that's going to do everything that we can to help communities as they're dealing with these types of tragedies, to make sure we're moving faster and with the bipartisan law on the Safer Communities Act, make sure things are moving at a rapid pace. And so that is kind of the goal of the office, but we actually need Congress to do more. We have to, and we have to put the pressure on them to do that.
If I'm not mistaken, it's already illegal in most places for people under 18 to have guns. Is this an enforcement issue? Is it that law enforcement needs to step up to get guns?
I mean, look, there are many issues, right? Obviously, law enforcement issues. There are many issues that need to be addressed, and that's why federal legislation is important to this as well. But look, we're going to, I'm not going to get ahead of what the investigation is on the ground, what they're looking into, but it's a problem. It is devastating. It is devastating for, once again, to talk about a shooting. And it's not the only shooting that happened this week or yesterday even. And so we have to get Congress to act. We have to get Congress to make sure that they're continuing to do the work that they started, right? If you think about high-capacity magazines, that assault weapons, we need to ban those. Safe storage of guns, that needs to be something that we continue to require. Pass a national red flag law. We see those in certain states, but we need that on a national level. We need to enact universally background checks. All of those things that I just laid out as you're asking me this question is going to have an effect. And so we need to see those items dealt with by Congress. We need to see legislation. That is one of the solutions to reduce violence.
Missouri also has very lax gun laws statewide. Is this also an issue at the state legislative level that the state legislatures aren't?
We believe it. Yes, obviously, it's an issue at state legislative levels, but we've also lifted up some of these states that have done the extra actions, right, to make sure that their state is protected. But we also need Congress to act so we can see a national red flag law, so we can see a ban of assault weapons, right, so we can see high-capacity magazines also banned. These are all important. These are the things that I just listed out is going to save lives. Go ahead, April.
On that subject, as you're passionate from the podium about this, and this is an election year, do you expect the president to lean in to push Congress to act on gun legislation, gun reform, etc., leaning in on a consistent basis this year?
I mean, I think we've been pretty consistent on leaning in on what we're seeing in communities, gun violence that we're seeing in communities. We've been pretty consistent on calling out Congress. I mean, this is the second time this week that I've talked about a shooting. I think maybe even the third time this week that I've talked about a shooting that's occurred, whether it's an anniversary or an active shooting that just happened that day. And every time I'm at the podium, every time I talk about these devastating events, I talk about what the president has done, I talk about what he's been able to do with Congress, and I've talked about what are the next steps. And so, look, we have seen from Americans across the country, gun violence is an issue that is important to them. That's why the president took historic actions. That's why we have that bipartisan Safer Communities Act that's now law. Those things are important, but we need to do more. We need to do more, and that is for Congress to do more. Can you imagine the first 2 years of the president's administration, he did more than 24 actions? That's unheard of. But that also shows you how committed he is to trying to stop this epidemic. To stop. If that doesn't show commitment from this president, I don't know what else. And then having bipartisan conversation to pass the first anti-gun violence law in 30 years. In 30 years. I think the president has shown his commitment to this issue. What we need is Congress to take another step with us.
Is this Third rail issue during the presidential election season, you think, for the president?
A third rail issue in what way?
Meaning, it's polarizing. The gun issue is it's a very sensitive issue. You have Republicans and the gun lobby who will go
Oh, I see what you
drastic,
mean.
yeah, against him.
But look, we were able to do bipartisan legislation, right? Almost 2 years ago. We were able to do that. So obviously we have their attention. Obviously there's some care about what's happening in our communities. But we need to get them to take a step further, right? The gun lobbies cannot own this, right? We cannot allow them to take away our rights or our ability to save lives. We got to save lives here. Children were part of what we saw yesterday. It's not okay.